Hi, this is Gary with Aldan American. Today we're going to show you how we install this RCX double adjustable coilover kit on the front of our 67 Camaro. This kit also fits the 67 to 69 Camaros and Firebirds. This kit also fits the 68 to 74 Nova and all the other GM X-Body chassis. So the coilover kit comes with front coilovers and rear shocks, but on this particular car we're doing something completely different and special. So we're not going to be using our smooth body shocks. So come on over here and I'll show you what we're going to be installing also. So what we're going to do on this 67 Camaro is we're installing the Performance Online 4-link conversion that uses the Aldan American coilovers and a subframe connector kit. I personally have never installed one of these kits yet. We're going to find out how easy or how difficult it is. It will be a future video, not going to be on this video. This video is only going to be the front kit. Follow along as we do our installation. So this is the 67 Camaro we're going to be doing our front coilover installation on. This car belongs to Bill Speed of Black Widow Exhaust. Check them out, they make some really nice mufflers. And one of the other things that they have that really tells you how cool Black Widow Exhaust is, they even have a Hot Wheel. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off our front wheel. So when we remove our caliper, we don't want to hang it from the brake hose. So what I did, I made this little hook out of 3/16 brake line tubing. I'm going to use this ball joint separator tool, and so what this does is it expands and it pushes the tapered seat on the ball joint out of the spindle. So now we're going to remove our shock. So we're going to remove the upper nut and then we're going to take the lower bolts out and take the shock out. We were talking to our buddy Bill one afternoon and he told me he had a little problem with his front shock, which is kind of what led up to why we decided to do this whole coilover installation. He said the front lower right shock mount had failed. Check it out. So you can see what he did here. He lost the T-bar, the bushing failed, and in order to make it home, he wadded some rubber up, a zip tie, a couple of bolts, put it all back together. We said, nah, that's not acceptable for our buddy Bill. We want to make it right for you. So something else that we occasionally will see in an older car, we see this spring twisty. And so what that is it boosts the front coil spring when they're worn out. So being that Bill had purchased this car, I can't blame Bill for doing this, but you know, when we were talking and he said it had some suspension issues, we decided to definitely get into it. And when you start finding stuff like this, you know it's time and it's ready to upgrade your suspension. I'm going to remove the spindle because it'll make it easier to photograph what we're doing on our installation, but you don't always have to remove the spindle. Our friend Bill made a little bit of abstract art in order to make it home. Basically, he told me that when the shock fell apart on him, it was dragging the ground. So he improvised and used whatever he could to get it back together so he could make it home. We love you, Bill. So now we can see why there's a twisty in the spring. Somebody's cut the spring too much to lower it. So see how hard it is to come out? It just... So this is a tool I made. It's a 1/2-inch piece of threaded rod with a couple of nuts and some washers. And so what I do is I put it between the frame here where the A-arm goes, because the original bolts and bushings, when it was all tightened down, it squeezes the frame so you can't get the A-arm into the hole. So while our lower control arm is off, we're going to install our sway bar. This is an 1 1/8 sway bar from Performance Online. We installed our Performance Online 1 1/8 sway bar. It was a little bit difficult to get in. This particular car has a big block, and I think the actual engine mounts are a little bit soft. This is an older car, and the engine is sitting real low, and I had to take the A-arm back off to get the sway bar in. But the most important thing is when we tighten these bolts down, I run them up with the little impact gun, but I do my final tightening by hand with the ratchet, and so that way we don't pull the threads out of the frame. We're going to install our lower tubular A-arm. I've already put a little bit of grease on everything so it slides in and goes together easier. So we've torqued our lower control arms down to 75 foot-pounds. This has a Delrin bushing on it, so you should be able to move the arm nice and smoothly with them torqued to 75 foot-pounds. Likewise, our sway bar should also move nice and free. Now I'm going to remove the upper control arm. I'm going to remove the nuts. What I'm also going to do is on the alignment shims, I'm going to replace them when I put the new arms in the same order so the alignment shop has something to work with. So on the upper control arm shaft bolts, they've got splines on them. So you don't want to turn this end, you want to push the bolt backwards so that you can remove the A-arm. These upper control arms have got slots in them and they take these slugs. So depending on how you put the slugs, it'll give you additional caster. On this lower control arm, they've welded nuts on for the shock mount. So what we need to do is we need to drill the nuts out to 3/8 of an inch. Now the way the stamping is formed for around the shock area, I want to run our ALD 39 reinforcing plates. So these plates fit nicely with the T-bar and it carries the load of the shock over a greater area. On these arms, they've got nuts welded to the stamped spring pocket area. So I'm going to drill the nuts out because the nuts sit a little bit lower than how it's formed, and by doing that, this plate is going to sit nice and flat on the lower area. When Aldan American assembles the shock, we put a little bit of anti-seize on for the spring seat. But when we go to assemble it, I like to put a little additional anti-seize above the spring seat, so as you're adjusting it, it will then pull more anti-seize underneath the spring seat so that you don't have any problems with the spring seat galling or makes it easier to adjust. So now we're going to take and grease our thrust bearings. The thrust bearings are an option. It's ALD 26. I'm now going to take and grease my thrust bearings. The thrust bearings go between the spring and the spring seat, and this allows for easier adjustment on the ride height. Now I'm going to take my greased thrust bearing, I'm going to put it on top of my spring seat, and when I put my spring on top, you can see how it makes it easier to adjust. The Rebound adjustable shock has a removable knob, so you do not want to remove the set screws that are in the top. You just want to unscrew the knob, and then after you put the bushings and everything and tighten them down, you're just going to screw it back on. And so what I'm going to do on this is I'm going to put the knob back on, screw it down. I'm going to go full clockwise. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to back it off 10 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 10 clicks. And so that is the center of the adjustment range. There's a total of 20 clicks. So at this point we can go 10 clicks looser to soften the suspension, or 10 clicks more to make it more firm. On the lower side, we have our compression adjustment knob. So on the knob, it has 6 positions. So on this particular car, because I know that Bill's a little more aggressive driving style, I'm going to set it on number 3 because I know that's what he wants to do. At this point, with the spindle and everything off, this is the easiest point to adjust the spring preload. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 1/2 inch of preload on the spring, and what I've done is I've taken my straight wrench and I've actually bent it into a V shape, and this allows you to adjust the spring seat and not interfere with the lower control arm. We're now going to drop the spindle on the ball joint. That is how you install the sway bar, the tubular control arms, and our coilover kit. If you need any additional information on this kit or any other Aldan American products, you can always go to aldanamerican.com, and we have our chat feature during the hours of 8 to 5. And also you can give us a call, 310-834-7478.